Hi, I'm Scott Leadingham. Thanks for joining us here in the unique Northwest. We are used to by now many events, concerts, festivals being canceled here in 2020, but not so much for 2021 because a lot of people are still waiting to see what happens with the pandemic. Well, one big music festival, the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival at the University of Idaho, has already made the decision to go all virtual for its 2021 event in February. And joining us to talk about that decision is the festival's director, Joshua Skinner. Thanks for joining us today, Joshua.
Thank you for having me today.
So let's start. First and foremost, why did you already make the decision for February 2021? It seems like a lot of people are starting to waiting and see what happens. What led to that decision?
Sure. Creating and kind of planning the logistics for Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival is about an 18-month to 12-month process. And we're only about 6 months out from February. And not knowing if artists are willing to commit to travel during current pandemic situations, not knowing if schools are even meeting. And I think it's a great example as you look at Oregon, Washington, Idaho. In our area, some schools are meeting in a hybrid flex, what some of them are calling it. Some are meeting only online right now. Others are meeting face to face. And so not knowing what schools can do and music programs can do, it was really difficult to project who would be able to visit campus. And having the discussion with our team internally and with our administration at the university, we felt the best course of action was to create a virtual jazz festival for 1 year so we could still reach out to all our stakeholders and all those jazz festival fans to provide an educational opportunity this year that we knew anyone could attend throughout the world, compared to not knowing if a school just down the road can come versus one locally that could come.
And for those who are unfamiliar with the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival, give an idea, how big is it, who attends, and kind of what role does it play in the field of music education?
Sure. So we're going into our 54th year. This will be our 54th Jazz Festival, and we are one of the largest educational jazz festivals. We typically see right around 5,000 just student performers in attendance from kindergarten up through college. And students come from all over the Northwest in the country to join us. Often we see our largest core of students come from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana. We see some schools come from Nevada, Utah, and we had some from Minnesota come previous years. We had a couple schools come out of Massachusetts. And then we see a large contingency of Canadian schools come from the BC area, so Victoria, Vancouver, and the surrounding communities often come join us. And usually we see about 150 different schools that join us, if not more.
So we're talking about the 2021 festival being all virtual, but let's step back in time to this year in February of 2020. Of course, that's before everything sort of blew up and things were being canceled. So the festival, of course, still went on. But the coronavirus was still present in the Northwest. It had been identified, of course, in Western Washington at that time. And there were some cases, and there had already been a death by that time in Western Washington. So students came from a school that had later been identified as having some cases, or at least a case in a student at that school in Snohomish County. And then students from that school, not that student who was infected, but just students from that school came to the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival. And that sort of caused a ripple effect. They had to close some schools in Idaho that had hosted these students. And so there's sort of this big news story because we weren't sure what was going on with the pandemic at this time. It was just so new, right? And everyone sort of freaked out, perhaps thinking, oh my gosh, they all came to Idaho. From your perspective as someone who manages the festival, what was that like, and what lessons did you learn from that experience?
Sure. So how that kind of broke timeline wise is with the news cycle that took place, it literally took place during Jazz Festival. So that all hit us on Friday of Jazz Festival. So we were already a day into Jazz Festival when that news hit and was released to the public. And that was towards the end of the day. And then more information became available Saturday. So a lot of my day was dealing with a new panel that was quickly created on campus dealing with infectious disease. We had Gritman representatives, Latah County officials, our president, and others to kind of discuss best practices. Our environmental health and safety expert was involved with that. And it was, how do we approach this? What do we do? Do we need to close the festival? Do we need to? So it was kind of that logistics discussion of what do we do, and working with that school that was identified to kind of get a better understanding, because there was so little information at that time. We didn't know. And as we put that information together, the panel that was put together for that felt very comfortable in finishing off the festival the last day, because of the precautions that were taken by the schools that had come from Washington. So that felt very comfortable at that time. But again, it was very, very new for everyone, and trying to figure out how we approach this. And now we're, a good 6 months later, now we're all figuring out, precautionary measures and logistics and planning when you're hosting live events again. So, and it seems to change every day still.
Yeah, we were talking before we started recording here, and I wonder if you could shed some light on what it looks like to do music education on a college campus now during the pandemic. Of course, University of Idaho has this hybrid flex model, some online, some in person, but it was really insightful to learn about kind of how music education ensembles, big, brass and string ensembles are actually practicing now on campus. Could you shed a little light on that?
Sure. So our director has done a great job, Vanessa Seelert, in working with our campus partners in figuring out a plan and a way to allow music education to continue for our students. The biggest challenge is figuring out winds and brass and vocalists right now. So if you were to take a little tour through our campus today near the administration building, you would find a lot of individuals outside, working with professors one-on-one for their lessons, socially distanced and masked up. And you'll see that the tennis courts have been, kind of cordoned off there to allow small ensembles distance play together. So we're trying to utilize the outdoor space as long as we can, since a lot of the indoor spaces are either too small or might not have the HVAC needed to clean out the air in an acceptable manner. So we're just being creative in any way that we can to allow those students to have the experiences that they are hungry for and desire, and that we can provide for them safely. And on the flip side of that, we have individuals like the string players, and I happen to lead the string orchestra as well as part of my assignment. And they're at least lucky enough that they can meet inside a room with masks, just because they don't have that aerosol coming out of the end of their horns, so to speak.
Right. As a longtime trumpet player, I can say, yeah, the trumpet players and the brass players like to speak a lot. The string people are probably okay not talking as much. Going forward into 2021 for the Jazz Festival, and it's going to be all virtual, I wonder if that might be a model, though, beyond that. Maybe going forward, it will be a virtual and in-person event for the future, or have you even thought about that yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Jazz Festival ended March 1st, and I kind of saw this pandemic taking place, whether it was named the pandemic at the time or not, I started to wonder, well, let's start creating some contingency plans of how we approach 2021, or how can we plan in a way that will allow us not to be canceled. And I was watching major music festivals across the country at that time canceling nearly daily. And some of the other major educational jazz festivals that are hosted in April were canceling as well. And so for me and my team, we started to discuss options of like a hybrid model of, well, maybe we could do 2021 as hybrid. And as it got closer, we realized that's not going to be possible. It's going to be virtual. But we kind of created an outline or a template that would allow us to run a hybrid festival for 2022. And we do have plans that are kind of sitting there as we get through 2021 that will probably be introducing some of those aspects for 2022. One of the things that's really appealing to our team is this truly will become a global event this year, where schools can participate from anywhere in the world if they choose to, and have an incredible educational experience, whether that's an adjudicated performance or whether that's one of our artist educator workshops by these incredible musicians from around the world. So being able to reach out to everyone globally is kind of the exciting part for this year. And then we're going to identify what aspects were really successful and hopefully implement that as a hybrid for 2022.
Joshua Skinner is the head of the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival at the University of Idaho, which takes place every year. And in 2021, it will be a virtual event. Thanks for joining us today, Joshua.
Thank you for having me.
You can see more Northwest News coronavirus resources and updates at our website, nwpb.org. Thank you for joining us here in the unique Northwest.